Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. In this pre-recorded episode, I am, of course, your host, Andrew J. Polk. And today, as this is airing, is July 9th, Saturday, 2022. And today we are talking about the New Mexico Museum of Space History, the many topics they explore, some of the new things that they are working on, as well as, of course, checking on that burgeoning regional space race, some of the interesting updates there, and of course how the cycle of science fiction and science fact both influence and change each other. So, of course, you can find us on air, online, live streaming through the KTSMradio.com and full video on the El Paso History Radio Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as up as this recording is going on the Facebook page, Remember in El Paso When. And this is, of course, the place where we say Texas history begins in El Paso. We do have a history moment for today for you at the top of hour 2 from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk. Today he talks about Operation Paperclip and its own influence on some of the regional development and why we have that space race going on in this region here today. So, joining us here in studio today, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. So, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, as always.
Happy to have you on because it's been just about a year since we've checked in last, and even when we're talking about history, people may think, well, okay, it's history. Sure, there may be new discoveries, but it's not exactly changing, but the modern history and what is going to become the history is, of course, changing, and of course, your exhibits are changing. So there's a lot to discuss here.
Oh yeah, always. So that's one of the nice things now is that for the last, for us about the last 10 years, we've been working on infrastructure issues at the museum. Now we're starting to work on exhibits. So about every 6 to 9 months, new things happening, showing up on display, etc. So yeah, you're exactly right. As far as us and our displays, we're going to be constantly changing from here on out.
Absolutely here. So if anyone's confused about what we're talking about, this is the gold cube, as I believe you put it.
Yeah, exactly.
Up there,
yep.
As you look towards the mountains from Alamogordo.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful, especially at sunset. If anybody's ever out there at the White Sands, out the National Monument, and you look back towards the city of Alamogordo at the sunset time frame, this thing just literally glows, and that's what the architect was looking for. When they created the concept for this back in the 70s.
So again, a beautiful place, and it's pretty. The layout that you all have there is its own unique nature because it's not like a usual museum that you kind of work your way through. You actually kind of spiral downwards.
Yeah,
really.
You start up on the 5th floor. The building itself is 80 feet tall. So you start up on the 5th floor, work on your way the rampways. Sometimes we have split floors, so the 5th floor is actually 2 parts: 5A, 5B, 4A, 4B, etc. So, and 2,500 square foot galleries. So yeah, you're kind of ramping your way down. It is very different. It was originally built as a Hall of Fame,
right.
The International Space Hall of Fame, and that we still house the Hall of Fame, but. And then it morphed into a museum in the 80s, so it's kind of a strange layout for a museum, more set for something like you would see in a Hall of Fame where you're, talking about specific people. But it works, and it's fun, and it's quirky, and we love it.
As another example here, this is more of the outdoors part of it here, because you do have that kind of rocket park. Is that how you all talk about it? That's how I think of it.
Yeah, that's exactly. In fact, it's the John P. Stapp, rocket park is what the name of the area is. And so, we have a number of items out there. We're actually in the middle of renovating it, putting in new rampways in there, actually adding if people are looking at the picture online, they might see that there's this white antenna that's a little bit down from the rocket park. Just up above that, we've put in the new pad, and we are going to install the building this month, the new observatory that we're putting in there for our astronomy programs, which are getting huge this year. They're going to become much bigger for the next 12 months and down the road. But the rocket park has got a whole bunch of missiles, old V2 rocket, the largest rocket to date launched in this region. Eventually SpaceX is going to beat the heck out of that record. Right. But in any case, so the little Joe is out there that you saw the picture of the astronaut in front of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, a lot to see, not even just in the building, but on the grounds as well here. And you all are constantly doing those improvements and changes and have a lot of things that, even if you've been up here frankly, since the last time we had you all in the program, going to be differences already.
Yeah, big time, yeah. So, in fact, actually, we opened up, the Human Spaceflight Gallery was the most recent exhibit that we opened up, and we're still finishing it because we leave the galleries open while we're actually installing the new stuff, So that's kind of the, one of the things that's going in. We talked extensively about our restrooms last time. That was a new exhibit, They're all complete now. If you want to learn fun facts about Uranus, come to our bathrooms and sit down in the stalls. Yeah,
and then learn about the planet.
It's about the planet, not the physical part. But that's the fun of something like that. And then the new exhibit that we're literally just starting to work on here in the last couple of weeks is the Sci-Fi and Sci-Fact exhibit. Yeah, we got delayed on that one. So just coming out of COVID, things have been really weird. And
absolutely.
so we're still kind of coming out of the problems that we had with access to the museum, personnel and everything like that. And so now it's fun. We had to do rehiring, same as just about everybody, but now we're kind of getting back up to full speed ahead. So we just put the first of the new cases together for it, and what's going to be going into the. Well, actually, let me explain what the exhibit is first. So Sci-Fi, Sci-Fact, and if you take a look at what we've created for the logo for the exhibit, it's there's a bunch of stuff to it, but there's two arrows chasing each other.
Right.
And the idea of it is that we really, the idea of things that we read about, that we see in movies, science fiction, is always affected by what happens in the real world, science fact.
Yeah.
And things that we see happening in science fiction affect what we see, in the real world, science fiction. So they're just constantly changing, chasing around with each other. And, one of the greatest examples, as I told you even before we started today, that if you just go back to the original Mercury, Gemini, Apollo astronauts, what did they say influenced them? Virtually to a person, every single one of them said that, like Buck Rogers, Jules Verne, H.G. Wells were big influences for them. And that was science fiction. It wasn't really, it's Jules Verne, when he wrote all that stuff, it didn't exist.
Oh yeah, he was totally forecasting.
But in forecasting, but we take a look at the things that were written about, the things that movies way back when, were made about. Eventually becoming science fact. Not everything, very obviously, but so many of them, become science fact. I thought one of the things that for me was an amazing moment when I was watching Apollo 11, when they got off,
right.
I was there on the floor with my hand, with my chin in my hands, watching the thing going on, as a young boy. An amazing experience. But another amazing experience for me was not too long ago when SpaceX launched the first of their new heavy rockets out there in Florida, which has the main first stage, and then it has two boosters attached to it. And when that thing lifted off, as you can kind of see there with a couple of boosters attached to it. So the main boosters for these Falcon 9 rockets comes and lands either back at a pad at Cape Canaveral or on a barge out at sea. So that was pretty cool in and of itself.
I think we have another picture of what they look like as they come in.
But when those two boosters on the side of the rocket came and landed right next to each other, that was a science fiction moment come to life.
I mean, almost literally, like the amount of depictions that have happened of this moment in media and fiction for generations at this point.
1940s, 1950s movies. Go back and you can find that. Paintings that were done, by very famous painters. You can go back and find images almost exactly like that. But it hadn't happened in real life until SpaceX did it, So, when the team there did it. So that's the neat thing in the exhibit. And how it really came about was that in 2016, we did an exhibit about Gene Roddenberry. Very well connected to El Paso, as we both know, So, and we did the exhibit, and, we weren't allowed to do a Star Trek exhibit. We had to do a Gene Roddenberry exhibit because of the Paramount's rules. Now, if you do a Gene Roddenberry exhibit, there's a lot of Star Trek in it. So the back part of the exhibit includes, no kidding, a full-on transporter with 3 pads on it. We have props from the TV show. We've got a Tribble in there. We've got the Enterprise encased in a...
Just one? Just one Tribble?
Yeah, just one Tribble. We keep it in the case. We don't let it anywhere near food in any case. But it is the one that Uhura was holding. So, it's on loan to us from the Smithsonian. And then we had the Enterprise encased in acrylic. We had the spears from the Galileo 7 episode. People loved that. And they connect to these things, so especially people who've watched Star Trek, who are fans, all of a sudden there's that wow, and it helps make a very visceral personal connection for them, which is what we want, because when people get connected to an exhibit, they're more interested and they'll read more and maybe read more about Gene Roddenberry and the things like that. So we were like, okay, how do we leave that stuff back there? And, but update the exhibit, because it had been, when we started, COVID, it had been a few years. And we're like, we have to update it. Well, we're delayed to now. In any case, though, we said, okay, science fiction affecting, science fact. Okay, we can tell a bigger story. We can tell more of it. We can tell, just not only the communicators and cell phones nowadays, but we can also talk about, that so many different things, whether it's the old sci-fi movies, and then we're seeing it with the rockets landing, whether it's just taking a look at the original Jules Verne books and what we see,
right.
The movie Passengers, and here we are colonizing planets far off in space, so we have acquired a huge number of props, costumes, and other things from the movie industry. First editions of books, that were written, whether that's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, whether it's Voyage to the Moon, from Verne, H.G. Wells books, etc. To kind of put these things on display and then show them, talk about how that has potentially affected. Some of it's just going to be fun sci-fi stuff, as well in there. Some of it's going to be real, fact stuff that became and got used in science fiction. Here we are. The movie The Martian, is a great example of the fact that we're researching everything. So Andy Weir, when he wrote that book, researched it tremendously and used his background working in that industry as well, and then turned it into a great science fiction story, but it's all based on science fact. And then it became a movie, it was very popular, 500-600 million, kind of thing. So in any case, that, that's the then science fact affecting science fiction as well, and us then enjoying it. So yeah, we have garnered, but we've got Joyce's suit from the Upside Down from season 1 of Stranger Things. We've got Mal's suit from Serenity and Firefly. We've got pieces of the Death Star from Star Wars, because Star Wars has had such a huge impact on the science fiction world, and a little bit of science fact. People are trying to make lightsabers nowadays.
Yep, that keeps coming up here.
That keeps coming up, So we've got, like I said, the colonization of other planets. Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt's some of their clothing from, and the bar stools from the movie Galaxy Quest, the movie that so many people call one of the best Star Trek movies ever. So in any case, we got one of the Thermian costumes, props from the TV shows Eureka, capsule. We've got one of the Mercury capsules from the movie The Right Stuff that they used for Alan Shepard's launch, and it's a half scale. It's the one that they used for the re-entry scenes and stuff. We got a piece of V'ger from the original Star Trek movie. Wow. 5-foot tall section that lights up.
Star Trek, the motion picture.
The motion picture, 77. Yeah. So we've got a piece of that and here over the next 2 weeks is the first time that we're going to take it out from under wraps, lift it up, and light it back up, so, and then figure out how to put that on display in the gallery, so yeah, it's just kind of, it's fun. Hopefully people learn more about the science fact side, but they're going to learn it through their connection to the science fiction side.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, questions can come up about why are you focusing on all this fiction stuff? Aren't we about the reality? But again, it informs each other, and how people connect with it, like you said, very important here. That's going to actually take us through our first break of the hour here right now. So again, joining us here in studio, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. We will continue to talk about this and all of the many interesting and fascinating parts of it after we take this next break here on the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. So stay tuned. More after this break, here after this.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given-Baney. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com, and you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Monterey Asset Management is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, maybe you should invest in real estate. Monterey Asset manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the new website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call Certified Property Manager Ray Baca, 915-592-4549, 592-4549.
Here's the deal. When you combine State Farm home and auto insurance, you save an average of $889. State Farm agent Ralph Dickerson is ready to help you combine home and auto and save here in El Paso. Call 915-581-0000 today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Average annual per household savings based on a 2019 national survey by State Farm of new policyholders who reported savings by switching.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, but I also want to mention, of course, that some of the other things we got going on for you, that we are the El Paso History Radio Show on Facebook. You can go there for our weekly promo announcements of the topics on the program each week, and also our YouTube channel, youtube.com/El Paso History TV, where you can find the El Paso Gold DVD series from Capstone Productions, chronicling more than the last couple of decades of history production in El Paso, fully uploaded for free for your viewing pleasure, plus the 20 recent segments of our ABC 7 TV series from El Paso History TV. And a reminder to support some of our advertisers as we are recorded today, not going to be headed out to Pepe's because they're also closed. They are closed here in their time off over the summer here, but they'll be back open next week after July 11th, so you can still find them, 6761 Donovan Drive, and drop them a line when they're open, 915-877-2152, 915-877-2152, home of the one and only Margarita. But joining us here in studio again, we do have Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. So we were talking a little bit in the first segment about, well, some of the new exhibits, some of the current ones you have, including you in your very stylish spacesuit there. Again, some of the both history and then, well, interaction back and forth between this and then, well, some of the other things people may have seen in terms of exploration, space, and or otherwise. And just something that comes up, and I just wanted to address here, is about the idea that, well, we're talking about history and museum, but then these things are, well, some people may argue neither, that these are neither history and may not have a place in a museum, but the way I think about it, and I'm sure you have your own opinions on this, is that the stuff that we see in fiction, the things that we see on the screen, is one of the more ways that we connect with them directly, because otherwise, I mean, I don't think anyone would have in their regular life seen an actual suit like this around. They may have some of the technological implications that have come from the development here. I mean, microwaves, among other things, often get cited as a result of the space race and the development that were required of it, but really helping people understand that, yes, what they have seen on screen is influenced by what was happening in real life, but also helps them connect it, give them a framework of understanding. Because if you keep it so academic, so, well, okay, here's how orbits work and those kind of things, certainly important and something that you also have in the museum, but then just giving them an entryway, essentially, is very important.
Yeah, and there's multiple. It's a whole semester class to really have this discussion, you know, in its entirety, because of the many different levels that there are of this. But it was interesting, something that you brought up in your discussion, maybe slightly off the issue of science fiction and science fact talking about each other, or influencing each other, but NASA has a hugely difficult time talking about how what they do, the things they create, the systems that they design, the stuff, you know, those sort of things, the materials that they have developed, etc., affect people in their real lives. They call them spin-offs. They used to put out a magazine every year that talked about the spin-offs, and NASA had a hugely difficult time trying to help people know what they had done, what they had created. NASA's a public organization, so they're paid for by the taxpayers. They're trying to show not only were we exploring space, but we're also bringing back all these things, materials that are used in helmets, the sleeping beds that we use, pillows, everything, all this sort of stuff, medicines, medical devices, tons of things have been spun off out of NASA developments. And so that's something that, we've also always tried to help them show people. And so we talk about a couple of spin-offs in the museum. And sometimes people are like, well, what does it really matter? That's not the history. Well, it is, but it affects you in your real life. When we're going to be telling the histories or the stories of satellites, the main story that we're going to tell in the new satellite gallery when we open up that's another story for another show, is GPS.
Oh, yeah.
Because it affects everybody. So basically, 1/4 of that gallery is going to be about GPS because it's something that people can connect to, that they see affect them in their daily lives, and that they use all the time. And they can then sit there and say, okay, because you can talk about a weather satellite, you can talk about a spy satellite, you can talk about these things, but people don't necessarily always make that connection. GPS on their phone, connects them instantaneously to what they use in their real lives as well.
The reason we don't have to go to MapQuest and print it all out before we head on a trip anymore.
Bingo, pull out the old triptychs and everything else, the big book guides, etc. You name it. So I'm trying to remember the name of those. In any case, it'll come back to me. Thomas guides. In any case, though, so for anybody over 40, but this science fiction and science fact is along those same lines because there is so much that has happened in the real world of space exploration, scientific achievement that was influenced by people either growing up watching something science fiction that made them want to get into that business, that endeavor, that's, become an engineer or whatever else, or it's something that actually they saw and then said, we need to be able to do that, So some person thinking about this wrote it, or it was created in a movie or something like that. And then somebody was able to say, okay, can I do this in real life? It kind of does come back, as I mentioned in the last segment, the astronauts all talked about how they were influenced by Jules Verne and by Buck Rogers. A lot of the modern astronauts talk about how they were influenced by Star Wars and Star Trek, especially Star Trek.
Absolutely.
It has had a huge influence on people who are now flying in space. And so then just take a look at media coverage. Okay, Blue Origin flight, not too far away from here. That's going to be another segment I know that we're going to talk about here. Yeah. Gets a little bit of coverage, but if William Shatner flies on board the spacecraft, guess what? Gets a heck of a lot more coverage and people paying attention to it. People make the connection. So in our situation, we are trying to tell the bigger story of space exploration in its entirety. The people, the equipment, the materials, the achievements, the astronomers, all of that. We tell all those stories. Well, you got to kind of help people make the connections in their real lives. So if up on our 5th floor, we're trying to help them put themselves back into the era of Sputnik, we're going to put a lot of pop culture stuff up on the walls from the 1950s so that it takes them back to the time. If we're talking about the Human Spaceflight Gallery, we have items up on the wall that tell about what life in Cocoa Beach was like at the time, so people can connect to that. Oh, by the way, if we're talking about our spacesuits that are on display, we have a Russian spacesuit, a Sokol spacesuit that they use when they're going up to the to the space station and stuff. The one we have on display is the one that was used in the TV show The Big Bang Theory. Because it's an exact replica of the one that was used in the show in real life, and an astronaut who has flown on that spacecraft and in that spacesuit was on that TV show and wore that spacesuit and talked about how close it was to the real thing. So we then we help people make that connection. So by having fun in the middle of all these real spacesuits that really flew in space, we have one that didn't fly in space but was used in a TV show. Guess which one gets talked about the most?
Yeah, that is
that one, and so it's just kind of one of those things that it helps people connect to the other stories and the other things in the galleries as well. So, that's just kind of a little bit in a nutshell of at least why we're doing it, but also it's the reality of the fact that so many of these things that were thought up, dreamed about, have actually become reality, and things that we are doing in real life now end up in the TV shows and the movies as well.
Again, that constantly reinforcing your cycle you're talking about there. Tell you what, speaking of that, we got to take that next break right now, reinforce our own cycle here. So again, joining us in the studio here is Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. We'll talk more about some of their exhibits and current things going on in the region, that modern space race we're talking about here, including some developments being tracked there. So stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given Bainey. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com, and you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Monterey Asset Management is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, maybe you should invest in real estate. Monterey Asset manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the new website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call Certified Property Manager Ray Baca, 915-592-4549, 592-4549.
Here's the deal. When you combine State Farm home and auto insurance, you save an average of $889. State Farm agent Ralph Dickerson is ready to help you combine home and auto and save here.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. You're going to be checking back in on our topics with the New Mexico Space Museum here in just a second, but also got to tell you about some of our other great partners in promoting local and regional history, including Celebration of Our Mountains. You can find them, of course, online at celebrationofourmountains.org, or just search them up on your favorite search engine with that name there. And they've got some great hikes that have been coming up and going on, including going on today. They'll be out at War Eagles, but if you missed out on that one already, don't worry. They got some other ones coming up even a little bit later this month, including going out to some of the, Tech H2O Center, wastewater treatment plants, those kind of things, as well as even coming up later next month already, Fossils of Mount Cristo Rey with Eric Kappas, happening Saturday, September 10th. A great opportunity to see, one of the original, talkers and discoverers of such things. So again, all of the information about them, celebrationofourmountains.org. And of course, our friends over at Monterey Asset Management, their name has been changed to M1EP Management Corporation. So if you're looking for any of their assistance with both real estate investing and multifamily property management, you can find them at m1ep.com. That's m1ep.com, or 915-592-4549, 915-592-4549. But again, joined here in studio by Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum Museum of Space History. We were talking about some of your new exhibits, some of the current ones, changing ones, those kind of things. But of course, something that you all have, maybe not exactly a direct line of sight to, but probably pretty close there, out to Spaceport America and, of course, the regional space race.
Yeah, we're actually you joke. Yeah, we are very centrally located, and we are within sightline of one of the biggies. So if you take a look at where we are in the Tularosa Basin, there, if you drive kind of towards Las Cruces and then back up, 2.5 hours, you get to Spaceport America. So that's about how long it takes us to drive there. If you kind of head 2.5 hours the other direction, you end up out at Corn Ranch, there. So Van Horn at Blue Origin's launch site. So we're kind of right in between those two. And oh, by the way, Boeing now with their new Starliner spacecraft that just had its second test flight not too long ago in the last couple of months, lands within sight of the museum. We actually went out there, and just watched it land out there at White Sands, at the missile range out there at the space harbor that they've got there. So, and that's where the shuttle landed back in 1983. And now you've got Boeing landing there as well. But if you go just due west of us, Spaceport America, and everything that Virgin Galactic is doing over there, by line of sight, it's actually even closer than 2.5 hours. We could use that road that goes right through the missile range. But
you could probably once, and I would never recommend such a thing.
Yeah, we wouldn't make it very far.
Exactly.
So they've always wanted to open that road back up, but that's not going to happen probably in my lifetime. So, but yeah, in any case, so we're right in the, that's the neat thing is that we're once again. If you take a look at New Mexico and the area here around El Paso as well, this region was huge in the space race.
Oh, yeah.
I think you got a neat segment coming up on the Paperclip guys. So they'll talk about the early days of the space program here in the United States was here. Literally, not just in the United States, but here in this region. It was out at White Sands. It was, at the missile range, which was the proving ground back then. It was here in El Paso. Well, once again, guess what? Yep, Florida is the big launch site. Yeah, they do launches out at Vandenberg, and there's also Wallops Island, on the East Coast. But guess what? If you take a look at the commercial industry, we're a big player, especially on what is more on the commercial side, the tourist side of it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
With people launching up into space. So that's the biggie with Virgin Galactic. We just had the head of their launch operations at the museum talking last Friday.
Okay.
Just a week ago, and in any case, he was talking about they're proceeding along. They're going to be bringing out the second of their two spacecraft to start doing the test flights for it here in the near future, and then they'll start doing launches every month, and so that's going to get started either right at the end of this year or beginning of next. So they'll be launching humans up. We know that Blue Origin's launching people on a more frequent basis now. We've seen a lot of that into the media. And it's interesting. One of you get a complaint from people that this is just for the rich. But if you take a look at history, go back and think about the aviation history.
Oh, bless.
Think about the aviation industry. Go back to the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s. What was it? Well, it was a little bit of a playground for the rich, and it was testing and all of that. We're into the human space flight era, and when I say humans, I'm talking about non-astronauts, people who are just, paying customers to fly out into space. We're in the early days of the space program that is almost exactly 100 years later and equivalent to the early days of the aviation program, where, Joe or Jane average citizen could not afford a flight on an airplane back then, could not have access to a flight on an airplane back then. But after 10, 20, 30 years, it got a lot less expensive. It still was still you had to be pretty rich to fly on an airplane. But nowadays, just about anybody can fly on an airplane, buy a ticket to go see grandma, grandpa, or to go and visit Europe or something like that. You're going to see the same thing happen in the space industry. It's going to be exactly the same. We're living through the early days of that. What a neat time.
Absolutely.
Neat time. And so that's why we're trying to collect the history so that we can tell the current stories, because this is current operations becoming history.
Absolutely.
Right now. So, and it's all happening right around here.
I know. The fact that it's out here, of course, some of the original reasons these facilities were developed was because, well, there's a whole lot of space out here, so why not go and use it? But the reason this stuff is here now is because those previous eras of infrastructure started up and now allowing them to continue with these operations.
It's also a great place to fly, as Virgin Galactic has said, the first mile's free.
Yep.
So that's one of the key things. That's also another reason why Blue Origin's out here. You're closer to space. That does make a difference. If you're a mile higher than you are in Florida, that's less fuel to get up into space, less weight, things like that. Blue Origin coming in here and is landing at White Sands Missile Range because the vast majority of the year, we got really good weather. We've got really good, clear, sunny weather. So that's why, Boeing is, looking at bringing the Starliner back here. It doesn't land in the ocean. SpaceX's, the Dragon spacecraft from the Falcon rocket lands in the ocean. But the Boeing Starliner lands on land. So we're the primary, landing site for it at White Sands Missile Range. There's a secondary landing site there, and then there's more in Utah and Arizona. So, we're going to see this for years to come.
And probably will be literally being able to see it here. So got to take that next break right now. Again, That's Chris Orwoll talking about some of these aspects of, previous and modern history going on there with the space race. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, some of the facilities and what we can expect, and what we got coming up here anyway after this next break here with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given Bainey. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com. And you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Monterey Asset Management is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market...
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for this pre-recorded episode of the El Paso History Radio Show, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. At least a couple of the people we mentioned here about our partners in local history. Rick Kern's music podcast, Talk and Rock Radio, often talking with some of the regional notables in some of those early music history and eras in our area. So, of course, go and visit talkandrockradio.com. That's talk, A-N-D, rock, radio.com to see his latest editions there. And of course, for getting some of the great services for El Paso homes for sale or rent, you have to give Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate a call. They've done some great work for us and our family. In fact, just closed on a house with him and his agency, making it quite the smooth process. Now, can't guarantee the same thing will happen for you with the tumultuous market out there, but if there's anyone that you want to trust to guide you through it and whatever those currents are, Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker, Heritage Real Estate would be the one I would go to. You can give them a call at 915-588-1850, 915-588-1850. Again, an excellent realtor to go to for El Paso homes for sale or rent, 915-588-1850. So, joined here again in studio by Chris Orwoll. executive director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. So again, another one of those implications people may say that, well, we're talking about the modern things going on right now, but as you said it, this is history in the making, and you all are pretty active in actually trying to then kind of gather and preserve what you can from this. I mean, you've got some things already on exhibit, but how does that process even work for y'all now when things are kind of still going on?
Yeah, it's difficult, especially when you take a look at the technology, because these companies that we're talking about, as opposed to when you talk to NASA, public agency, things coming out of it are government property.
Right.
You know, so you can get them on loan. Sometimes sometimes they just donate them to the museum because they're not going to ever be using them again, and they see no reason to hold on to them. Here, especially when you're talking about like with Virgin Galactic, and you're talking about Blue Origin or Sierra Nevada or SpaceX. They're holding this stuff very private, and the technology of these things, whether it's the capsules, the engines, the spacesuits, things like that, they don't want some of that information getting out. So getting things to put on display has traditionally proven difficult. The nice thing is that we're into really good discussions nowadays with Virgin Galactic directly, very specifically. When the museum I was at previously, we talked to folks with the manufacturers directly of the Spaceship One, which wasn't, kind of the same thing. And we got some items to put on display up at my old museum. Now, talking with Virgin Galactic directly, we're looking at right now getting a hold of an engine and one of the suits, that flew, and putting that on display for the public to see what that looks like. Eventually, with the folks at Blue Origin, would like to do the same thing, but we gotta, it's a slow process. Because it's got to go through so many channels, because they're concerned about other folks stealing their ideas, their technology. It's that intellectual property issue. Proprietary stuff, so that's kind of an interesting twist that's been thrown into the telling of the story. They want their story told. They talk with us, Boeing's the same way. Boeing, very interested, but getting I'm going to use the slang word, the thingies, getting the thingies out of them to put on display has always proven to be more difficult. Heck, even getting permission to build replicas of things has proven to be difficult, So now, like I said, we're now to the point, they're getting in their operations, their companies are maturing to the point where now they're seeing, okay, we're creating history. We need to have that story told. We need to have it preserved, et cetera. And so we're starting to get the companies talking to us now. You're starting to see the things. Okay. Where did this stuff go first? Well, the Smithsonian. No surprise. Well, Virgin Galactic, for their first stuff, it went to the Smithsonian. No surprise there. No. We're trying, kind of because they're around us, we're trying to be second in line, so, and what it looks like right now, probably, especially with Virgin, is, we're going to get some stuff here soon. If Blue Origin's out there listening, so, and there's anybody who can make that decision, so yeah, we want your stuff to be on display too, so, but we are actually in discussions, with them, but you never know who might be listening, so whether there's a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk happens to be listening in, so we're the International Space Hall of Fame. If they want to be inducted, they got to give us stuff. No, it's that total joke there, but
makes sense.
But yeah, it's neat that it's happening right now, and it's incumbent on us really to be very active in not only paying attention to what's going on, but then trying to tell that story so that the people can know, what's happening in real-time space world as well, the real-time space world as well. We do that through our education programs mostly. We do that through whether it's camps, whether it's school programs, whether it's trying to get, downlinks to the space station, speakers coming in, things like that. Exhibits, you tend to be lagging in the museum world. You're always going to be lagging because the history's got to be made really before you start putting it out. We tried to get ahead of the game with one of the spacesuits that NASA was doing, and we got a replica made of it to put on display, and then NASA went another direction. So it turned out, kind of a waste of money, sort of thing. So there's some lessons learned in that, in that realm as well, that you can make a bad decision by trying to get ahead of history. But we're, it's really fun. Like I said, the next big thing that we need to get a hold of, especially for us as the museum, I want a Boeing spacecraft. to put out there in front of one of the Starliners to put on display, especially since they're landing within sight of the museum.
Absolutely. And just have them land them right there at
that would
the
be
museum.
Another story. Yeah, that would be awesome, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, again, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Continue talking with him in the next hour of the El Paso History Radio Show, so stay tuned for more here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back after the top of the hour news.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given Bainey. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com, and you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Monterey Asset Management is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, maybe you should invest in real estate. Monterey Asset manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the new website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call Certified Property Manager Ray Baca, 915-592-4549, 592-4549.
Here's the deal. When you combine State Farm home and auto insurance, you save an average of $889. State Farm agent Ralph Dickerson is ready to help you combine home and auto and save here in El Paso. Call 915-581-0000 today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Average annual per household savings based on a 2019 national survey by State Farm of new policyholders who reported savings.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. Well, more about what we'll be talking to you about on how we're going to be bringing you shows for the future here. But in the meantime, starting out hour 2 of the program, as we usually do, with an El Paso history moment from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk, talking this week about a very specific and influential impact on this region when it comes to, well, rocketry and eventual space race development here with Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip was a secret United States intelligence program that brought more than 1,600 Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians from former Nazi Germany to the U.S. after the end of World War II. The purpose of Operation Paperclip was to get a U.S. military advantage in the Soviet-American Cold War and the space race. Many of the Germans were former members and leaders of the Nazi Party. Some were war criminals whose records were overlooked by the U.S. government. Many lived in the U.S. under limited military custody with their families. Most of the scientists, around 1,400, were deployed at White Sands Proving Ground in New Mexico, as well as Fort Bliss, Texas, and Huntsville, Alabama, to work on guided missile and ballistic missile technology. This in turn led to the foundation of NASA and the U.S. ICBM program. Werner Von Braun, who is known as the father of the American space program, built the V-2 rockets used against London during World War II. After the war ended, the U.S. Army destroyed some German equipment to prevent it from being captured by the advancing Soviet Army. 100 V-2 rockets, launchers, and related equipment were shipped to White Sands Proving Ground in 300 rail cars. Between 1946 and 1951, the Army fired 67 V-2 rockets from New Mexico. These launches and the training of a class of scientists and engineers led directly to further developments of new rocket programs, and ultimately the launching of humans into space. I'm Jackson Polk with this history moment for the El Paso History Radio Show.
So we hope you appreciate that moment there. Of course, have to mention some of our other great partners, and not even just talking about different aspects of local history, but promoting it just wholesale in its own right. Of course, the great Facebook page, Remember in El Paso When, and Barbara Given Bainey, operator of it. Go there for archive pictures galore. More than 33,000 members, and it could be a lot more than that, frankly, but they keep a very tight rein on those who are contributing to the discussion about El Paso history. So if size that it is, they have managed to keep it very much focused on the topic at hand, and well, let's just say not other things. But, of course, remember, the administrators have worked hard in researching for photos with history attached. When you use their photos, they ask that you give credit to their site. So, of course, we do, give thanks to Chief Admin and Owner and Historian Barbara Given Bainey, affectionately known as BGB. Also, admins Rick Duncan, Rick Nahara, and Margaret D. Smith, and moderator Ben Vincent. So they're always looking for some additional assistance with the many difficulties and topics that they handle there. So if you want to, of course, be involved with it, find them again. Remember in El Paso When here. But again, joined here in studio right now by Chris Orwoll, the executive director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. So Operation Paperclip there, foundational in a lot of ways, as we kind of previously mentioned, to why a lot of development was happening out here. But of course, there was already some basic things. People may be vaguely familiar with the Trinity site and things like that. Yeah. I mean, Kazner Range, the McGregor Range, things like that. So there was clearly previously a recognition of a lot of space out here and a lot of ways to do things. And sure, if you're going to launch something and you're not quite sure what's going to happen with it, you might as well do it in the what was then the middle of nowhere. Still, a lot is, but, well, there's a lot more around here than there used to be. And that's actually kind of an interesting concept that you're also, to an extent, dealing with when it comes to some other things, connected to the museum, but also not even just literally on the museum, but throughout the rest of the state of New Mexico when we're talking about the New Mexico Space Trail.
Yep.
For people who haven't heard about that, what is this concept?
Yeah, so this is something that the museum came up with over 2 decades ago. So it's been around for a while. It was originally the concept, just the fact, as you said, so much had happened in the region. Mm-hmm. And at the time, the museum was really taking a look at New Mexico. We're actually expanding it out a little bit now, but was taking a look at the state of New Mexico and all the different things when you think about space history, when you think about technological developments, the things that had happened. The Paperclip Scientists, well, you're just talking about them. A lot of what influenced them, and they used a lot of Dr. Goddard's work, and they built upon what Dr. Goddard had done, and Herman Oberth and Werner Von Braun and the team, and all the folks. They used a lot of his stuff. Well, Dr. Goddard had been launching rockets back up there in Massachusetts and had been running into some problems because it was a very populated area.
Yeah, when you're not sure when something's going to land, again, having it go through a neighbor's roof.
Yeah, or landing in their berry patch or anything else, and the noise and everything else. So he started looking around for another place to launch his rockets and do his testing in, and he settled on, out by Roswell. So here in New Mexico, for the same reasons we've talked about, that, the weather, the distance away from people, the lack of population, the flat ground, the altitude, all those different things. And so he started doing and continued his testing out here in New Mexico. Well, that's the same reason that they took a look at, the government programs out here as well. Good weather, altitude, lack of population at that point in time, those sort of things made this area perfect for doing that sort of testing. Well, it's also perfect for observatories. It's also perfect, so if you take a look at, the being able to see the night sky almost all year round, well, you might just happen to see a supernova in 1054 and might happen to do a petroglyph of that and record it, and so, the preservation of an incident that happened 2,000 or 1,000 years ago, the oldest recorded astronomical observation, is here in New Mexico. So that started the museum kind of coming up with this idea of, well, let's record all these sites. Let's log all of them. Yeah. Let's create a pathway that people who are coming to visit, maybe coming to visit the museum, that we could tell them, hey, while you're here, also go and check out whether that happened to be the McGregor Range, that happened to be the White Sands Missile Range Museum, whether that happened to be going over to the Very Large Array, whether that happened to be going to the petroglyph sites, whether that happened to be going over to Roswell to see Dr. Goddard's lab at the museum there, all these different things. So it was, and it was not just things that people could go to see. It was also where things happened, whether maybe the training was done at Philmont Ranch or the McGregor Range, or at the Valles Calderas. All these different locations where they were maybe training for the moon flights. And so it gave people a chance to find out about these places, even if they might not be able to visit them, but they would at least know about them. They'd be recorded. Well, now we're actually because we take a look at the region a little bit now, bigger, we're actually starting to say, well, we're getting space flights going on here in western Texas. We've got stuff that goes on in the Colorado area, over towards Arizona, Meteor Crater. There's places over there. This area, it's a big region. It's not. Don't just think trail. So now, if what Florida has done, they had the Space Coast. And they have taken big advantage of the marketing of the Space Coast. Our feeling is now that this region would be crazy. Here in western Texas, southern Colorado, eastern Arizona, New Mexico would be crazy not to take advantage of all the space history and current operations going on in this area and try and draw more people into it, to learn about it, to see it happening, to experience it, and just learn about it and enjoy it. And if you think about it, with the amount of space we're talking about, pun intended, completely,
absolutely,
the distances we're talking about, this is something you could spend days on. That people traveling around could spend days on, going from site to site, and make it a vacation that could last 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days, so enjoy all of it. Come out for a launch, stick around and go and see these other locations where significant space history or current space operations are happening.
Yeah, some of the ways you all talk about it, as you're, again, continuing to develop this idea, talking about the Southwest Space Corridor. And it's very interesting the way you put it there, because, of course, southern Colorado, people who may not have thought about it may think, Colorado, what does that have to do with it? But, of course, NORAD would be one thing people may be more familiar with, but even more recently than that, the U.S. Space Force headquarters, Schriever Space Force Base in Colorado. So that's a very recent development in terms of a lot of the things we're talking about here, but also it's interesting. And then, of course, if you want to trace it down, then through, again, eastern Arizona, as you're talking about, southern New Mexico, west Texas, and even if you want to go all the way to Boca Chica, within further reaches of Texas there, that's a whole kind of crescent-shaped space that we're talking about, a lot of development of the commercialization and modernization of the space race. But it's also interesting the way that you all talk about it, particularly as you mentioned some of the, astronomical observations being done, and astrological as well, to a certain extent, being done by the Native Americans at the time. That also, just the trails of exploration that have come to this area, where you're talking about Native American, Spaniards, colonization, all the way through the modern day. It's quite the story of exploration and curiosity.
Yeah. So, and once again, and that's one of the things that Spaceport America has really worked on is, there was so much of the travel that occurred from, down in Mexico all the way up to, to Santa Fe, et cetera, and beyond, went through that corridor. So all of the, or whether it's the Santa Fe Trail, you name it, there's a lot of travel, historical, exploration that happened in this area, not even related to space, but we try and connect the history of human exploration, whether they may have been using wagons, or horses, all the way up to the fact that we're now using, million horsepower, spacecraft that are going up and launching humans into space for our next great adventure and the next trail that's being created as well. Let's connect the Santa Fe Trail to the Space Trail. Let's connect the, all these different things, because they all kind of came through this area. So that's the story that we've been trying to tell. The neat thing is, I was going to say, in our situation, the New Mexico Tourism Department is coming on board right now, and we're going to start working with them much closer to make this happen as the near future goes on.
Interesting. So if people want to get a sense of this, again, there's more work being done on it, but if they want to see it, we've kind of been neglectful, honestly, of the museum itself here. If people want to get more details, resources on this, what's the best place for them to do so?
They can go to the museum website, nmspacemuseum.org. So, and that's our website. There's also a website for the Space Trail, nmspacetrail.org. .org, and they can go to that as well. And so, either but you can link to it from our website, or you can go directly to the nmspacetrail.org website. And if you go to that main website for the NM Space Trail, it will have information about what it is. It will also then have a map that you can click on. Mm-hmm. You can see where all these sites are currently in the New Mexico version of this. So, and you can click on any single one of them. You can, go to the different with some of it's done with pictures, so you can see whether it's an astronaut or whether it's like a historical site where maybe there was petroglyph sites or artwork and things like that. Equipment. There's even a little bit about the UFO side of the whole thing there. So yeah, it's kind of got all of that as well.
Excellent. So, again, people want to find out those websites. Again, nmspacemuseum.org for the main museum, of course, we're talking about here, and then nmspacetrail.org, as in New Mexico Space Trail, just the website, nmspacetrail.org. And, yeah, you got the great map there of all of the many different places, all the way from, Farmington, Taos, and such in the far north, Zuni Pueblo, and Clovis on the west and east sides of the state, respectively. And then many of those different sites, it's literally all over the place there, including the White Sands Space Harbor. So you'd be hard-pressed to not find something in some reach or at least close driving distance of the state to find something in there. So we'll have to talk more about that as we come out of this next break here, due for that first one of the hour here already. Again, joining us in studio here is Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Space Museum. Talk more with him about, the work on this and how it continues to develop after this break here on the El Paso History Radio Show, airing here in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a moment.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given Bainey. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com, and you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Monterey Asset Management is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, maybe you should invest in real estate. Monterey Asset manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the new website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call Certified Property Manager Ray Baca, 915-592-4549, 592-4549.
Here's the deal. When you combine State Farm home and auto insurance, you save an average of $889. State Farm agent Ralph Dickerson is ready to help you combine home and auto and save here in El Paso. Call 915-581-0000 today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Average annual per
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM in this pre-recorded episode, I should say. And of course, got to tell you what we got coming up for you next on the show. Next week on the program, we'll be exploring the history and the presentation of such in Viva El Paso as they begin their new season for this year. The performance is going on now, actually, but we'll be talking with a creative director there and more about, well, how they put it together and how they keep it going for the many years that performance has been going on, its own history in its own way. And of course, one more sponsor to remind you about, Mission Del Rey Southwest. Go there with out-of-town visitors for souvenirs, jewelry, gifts, and decor items. Great discounts on some of their items, particularly in clearance, but also a whole huge selection of local products to get the literal flavor, stuff you can eat, of the area. So check them out there. And so missiondelrey.com is where to find them, or visit their 12,000 square foot showroom on Lee Trevino. Mention the El Paso History Radio Show for a discount. Again, all the details, missiondelrey.com, or drop them a line at 915-440-2140. That's 915-440-2140. Joined here in studio again by Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Again, open now, opened the hours on the site, right? That they only close Tuesdays, right?
Yeah, we're only closed Tuesday. We're normally open up 10 to 5, and then on Sundays from noon to 5.
So, great reason to go out there for the many things. So, we were talking a little bit about that space trail, the New Mexico Space Trail, that also has some regional implications. But some of the other points that we made, besides the landing areas, the testing areas, was actually training areas that were in the area.
Yeah. So, it's really, you can go back to the early days, because you talk about astronauts. You got to get them ready to fly in space. So, the first thing when you think about, either training or let's talk selection. Lovelace Clinic, up in Albuquerque, was where the astronauts all came. Well, at that point in time, astronaut candidates came from the Mercury program, and they actually ran them through a whole bunch of tests that Dr. Lovelace came up with, some of which we look back and we're like going, what the heck? How did that apply in any way, shape, or form? And if you go back and watch the movie The Right Stuff, or you go and actually look at some of the online videos of the actual testing the astronauts went through, they didn't make a whole lot of sense, but, with what we know now. But at the time,
this might be important.
In the 1950s, they were like, okay, let's just make sure that they're as physically qualified as possible. So, in fact, actually, we've got one of the exercise bikes that they use to test their endurance on, so, and they did all sorts of weird exercises with balance and glasses and ice water in their ears and all sorts of strange stuff. But, that was a sight. But then as the astronauts got selected and they're getting ready for their missions, so one of the things that we learned, especially when we started spacewalking, was that we didn't really know how to move when we got outside the spacecraft.
That's true.
And so nowadays we just think, the astronauts, they get into the neutral buoyancy lab, the gigantic pool that's there at Johnson Space Center in Houston, and they train inside the water, and it's very similar to being in space. They can get upside down, they can spin around, do all these sort of things. But at the time, we didn't know. So when those initial astronauts got outside, when Ed White got outside the spacecraft, when Alexei Leonov got outside his spacecraft on the Soviet side, they didn't know how to move, and it was a little bit dangerous. We actually almost lost a couple of astronauts because of the difficulties of moving in space. Some of the testing that was done and how they learned, that neutral buoyancy lab, where the first neutral buoyancy lab type test was done was actually at the pool for the School for the New Mexico Blind and Visually Impaired in Alamogordo.
Oh, wow.
It was a test that was done there, and it was because it was so close to the medical center that was there at Holloman Air Force Base, and, a lot of the testing that they were working on, et cetera, and helping out, try to figure all this out. Then it got much bigger as they started doing the testing at more of the NASA locations, but that's where the first of those tests was done. Well, and then the Apollo astronauts, one of the big things when you think about training sites throughout, this region, right here around El Paso, the McGregor Range, so some of the caldera sites up in New Mexico, the Taos Rio Grande Gorge, the Valles Caldera National Preserve, the Salt Lakes, Zuni Salt Lakes. They took the astronauts out to these locations because it was the closest simulator points to what we had here on Earth, to what they might see on the lunar surface. At the time, we didn't know exactly what we were going to see when we got down on the lunar surface.
Yeah.
So they were taking them to all sorts of sites that they thought might, as closely as possible, approximate what they'll see there, what they could look for, what they could find, how they could walk around. So not only was it to learn maybe geology, which they did, they went out and found, what sort of rocks do you look for? That was one of the big things, is they did have geologists who were training them what to pick up, what to look for, what the different types of rocks are. These were military pilots. They weren't geologists. Right. They weren't geologists. Well, with the exception of one, from Apollo 17, Jack Schmidt. He was a geologist, but the rest of them were military pilots, and so they had to learn these skills on top of what they already knew. Landing on the moon, and so they went to these sites and they learned about the different types of geology in all these different locations. And a number of them were here in the Southwest, because guess what? Southwest, kind of, when you look at it, looks very similar to the surface of the moon in some situations.
I've often had people describe they feel like they're landing on the surface of the moon when flying into El Paso. So, makes a level of sense there. Again, we got Chris Orwoll here in studio with us, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. We've got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this, we'll talk more about, those Apollo missions and a particular anniversary going on right now here. So stay tuned after this break with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given Bainey. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com. And you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Monterey Asset Management is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, maybe you should invest in real estate. Monterey Asset manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the new website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call Certified Property Manager Ray Baca, 915-592-4549, 592-4549.
Here's the deal. When you combine State Farm home and auto insurance, you save an average of $889. State Farm agent Ralph Dickerson is ready to help you combine home and auto and save here in El Paso. Call 915-581-0000 today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Average annual per household savings based on a 2019 national survey by State Farm of new policyholders who reported savings by switching to State Farm.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live with video right here on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com. Our live streaming on Facebook started on November 21st, 2020, with our tribute to Leon Metz, which you can now listen to here on our Facebook page, El Paso History Radio Show. Scroll down our page to find that archive in our videos section. You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. If you want to find out any of our previous episodes, you can, of course, go to our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under El Paso History Radio Show, El Paso History, El Paso History TV, particularly on YouTube, or Andrew J. Polk. We post a lot of things up there, so you can always see what we've got for you and what is coming up here. And, of course, don't forget to miss our promos for future week shows happening over in El Paso Inc. They have a lot of important stories that they report on every week. So for home or business delivery, go to elpasoinc.com to get your subscription to that great publication, who we, again, greatly appreciate in their help in our promoting of local history and the discussion therein. So to that point, we are still, again, joined here in studio by Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. So we mentioned there just some of the, items, events, trainings that have gone on in the area. And you mentioned one in particular, one of the Apollo missions, and a lot of people have with some of the earlier 10-plus missions. Apollo 11 and, Apollo 13 get a lot. But Apollo 17, the one you mentioned there specifically, we're actually coming up on an anniversary of.
Yeah, so it's kind of a sad thing. We're coming up to the end of the Apollo 50th anniversaries. We started off in 2019 with the Apollo 11 50th anniversary there in January. December of this year is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 17. And this region has a significant connection to Apollo 17. Specifically because of one of the astronauts that was on board, Jack Schmidt, Harrison Schmidt. I mentioned, I think in the last segment, I said that the astronauts were all military pilots with the exception of one, and that was Jack Schmidt. So what happened is that NASA had all these Apollo missions doing tremendous, science research on the surface of the moon, and sadly we haven't been back again. And since then, and hopefully we'll be soon with another man or woman landing on the surface of the moon. We'll see. But in any case, as NASA was trying to keep everything funded, they had originally had permission to do Apollos 18, 19, and 20. As well, and those were funded. Well, they lost the funding for those, as the late 60s or as the early 70s were proceeding along. And so NASA had not only had all these military pilots that they had recruited in, that was Eisenhower had directed that they be test pilots. But then as the program was going on, they said, we need to have some scientist astronauts as well. So they did their first group, the fourth group of astronauts were specifically from the scientific community, from different types of scientists, and geology was one of those sciences. Jack Schmidt was chosen as one of those scientist astronauts. He was supposed to fly on Apollo 18. When they decided, or when they got told that 18, 19, and 20 were cut, NASA had to make that hard decision to actually remove an astronaut off of 17. They pulled Joe Engle off of he was the lunar module pilot on Apollo 17, and they put Jack Schmidt in his place. Joe understood why they pulled him off, but he does regret it, obviously, to this day.
Yeah.
In any case, though, so Jack Schmidt flew on 17, and so was the first true scientist, geologist, to stand on the surface of the moon and really look for those rocks. And he actually was also instrumental in the training of the astronauts, because when they were trying to figure out, how do we train these folks to be geologists, Jack got one of his old instructors to come in and teach the astronauts, and teach them, because he said this guy can actually connect with the astronauts. Okay. And so he brought a guy from California who he had studied under, and he actually helped train him up, and Jack helped as well, right alongside him, so in any case, though, Apollo 17 eventually flies in December from the 7th to the 19th of 1972, and gets up there, and the biggest, longest, furthest traveling, of the Apollo missions, because they had the lunar rover on board, so they were able to go out pretty good distances. They traveled the furthest away from where their spacecraft was. They had the longest EVAs because NASA had learned a ton, as as you go from 11 to 17, on all those 6 missions, you learn quite a bit about what it's like to walk around on the surface of the moon, how hard you can push your gear, et cetera, et cetera. And so they had a tremendously successful mission. One of the rocks from Apollo 17 is actually on display in our mission. Or in our mission, in our museum.
Right.
Yeah, every now and then you get stuck on a word.
Important missions there.
Yeah. So is on display in the museum, and for those online viewers, they can see it right there. And we built a new vault for it, when we did our human spaceflight gallery where it's located, and you can see the 2 vaults there. If anybody's curious, if they're looking online and they see the pictures, the other vault that's there actually holds the watch that Jack Schmidt wore on the surface of the moon. There's only 12 of those because only 12 individuals walked on the surface of the moon.
That's true.
They wore those Omega watches, the Speedmaster chronographs, and that's on display. That has to be in a vault as well. The Smithsonian says we have to have that watch in a vault.
That makes a level of, again, there's only 12 of them, and you don't want anyone doing a 5-finger discount on something like that.
Yep, there was an incident in the past with one of them getting stolen temporarily and stuff. So and the value of them is tremendous. They're valued in the millions,
literally astronomical.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in any case, we have that moon rock on display, and it's a fun one because the first EVA moonwalk, extravehicular activity, that the astronauts went out on Apollo 17, as they were driving out, Jack Schmidt pointed out and said, "That rock, it's out of place. It doesn't look like it should belong here. We need to remember to grab that one," because it was a pretty big size black rock kind of thing, black rock out there in the middle of this flat area. And so on the third EVA coming back, they drove right where that was, grabbed it, put it in their collection thing, and brought it back. And that has turned out to be one of the nice rocks that NASA brought back from it, not only for its scientific value, but it's also one that they ended up cutting up and using for all these displays that they created. That's not the rock that they picked up. That's only a sliver, section of the rock. We call it, it looks kind of like a brownie. It's about the size of a brownie, if you want to take a look at the size for anybody looking at the picture. So, but it comes from that rock that Jack picked up. So it's kind of a neat connection for us to be able to have, and once again, the connection to the history here is not just that Jack was from the area, but also that they trained in this area, whether it was Philmont, the Boy Scout ranch up there, where the astronauts went and trained up there, the McGregor Range, the Zuni Salt Flats, so the Valles Caldera, et cetera. So all these places were where they trained for these, geology missions that they were on, to try and bring back as much of the lunar surface as possible, so that the scientists here on Earth could learn more about what the moon's like. Same thing that we're trying to do now by bringing back pieces of Mars. Yeah, we got missions there that are unmanned, uncrewed. Sorry, got to use the correct terminology these days.
Of course.
Robotic exploration missions to bring back pieces of the moon, or send robots out there to the surface of the moon or surface of Mars, that are then doing. Yes, exactly. Yeah, doing the science there on site. So all kind of a neat way of NASA and we humans exploring our solar system. With us going there as well as robots going there and exploring for us, in the heroic situations. So one last thing on the Apollo 17, though.
Sure
thing. 50th anniversary coming up. We're actually going to have an event at the museum, and it's going to be the big event for the United States. So there will be the hold the date coming out soon. So, but it's right there that weekend of that December 7th time frame. It's going to be that weekend on the Friday. So in any case, if your listeners are interested, keep their eyes open, because it will be kind of a gala event, because it will be the last of the Apollo celebrations.
That is true here. And of course, you'll have a lot of other events that go on throughout the year.
Yeah, we have July 4th weekend. We have a couple of big events, the Big Bang Fest. We have the fireworks, which are tremendous to watch from the museum. Every month we're doing Science Saturday. Sadly, your listeners today are missing out on this month's Science Saturday, because it always happens in that second weekend. We have the first Friday of every month we have a Launchpad lecture. Last month we had Virgin Galactic coming and talking, so sometimes it's staff, sometimes it's outside agencies. We're astronomy events are going to start kicking up at the museum here very soon, so your listeners could keep an eye out for that. The biggest and easiest way for them to know about the events coming up is to become members of the museum, or to sign up for our newsletter. Either you can do off of our website. It's pretty cheap to become a member of our museum. $35 for an individual, $75 for a family. That includes both parents and all the kids under 18. That's free admission, free star shows, free fireworks, free Big Bang Fest, so, yep.
Pretty great that way. And again, for the information on that, nmspacemuseum.org. So that's going to take us through one of the last breaks of the program here. So coming out of this break, wrap up the show. Thanks, Chris, again here, and tell you more about some of these details and where to find that information. So stay tuned for more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
You are listening to a break in our Facebook streaming of the El Paso History Radio Show, which airs live on KTSM AM 690 in El Paso, Texas, and live right here now on our El Paso History Radio Show page on Facebook.com.
Visit Mission Del Rey Southwest for a huge selection of El Paso souvenirs and gifts. Mission Del Rey features El Paso saddle blanket products and thousands of Southwest, Western, Native American, and Mexico items for gifts and decor. Bring your friends and mention you heard us on the radio for a store-wide discount. Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino. Enter on Pelicano. Go to missiondelrey.com or call 915-440-2140 for Mission Del Rey Southwest.
This radio show is now streaming on the Facebook page Remember in El Paso When, run by Barbara Given Bainey. We still archive the audio of these radio shows on ephistory.com, and you can go there online and find our radio shows for the last several years. Go to ephistory.com and access the El Paso History Radio Show archives for every Saturday radio show back to early 2016.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing in this pre-recorded episode on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, and of course, having joined us here in studio and sticking around with us for the final segment here, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. You'll have a lot of things that are coming up here. You mentioned some of the things that you had going on for the July 4th holiday with fireworks being launched from the museum site there, and even some of the other ones such as the Great Southwest Star Festival, a Star Party, rather, way to put it. But also, I mean, with the exhibits and the things that people can go and see on permanent there, with that new one, the newest one that you got coming up is the Science Fact and Science Fiction, Sci-Fi, Sci-Fact, the way you're putting it here, opening a little bit later this year, but people have been able to see parts of it. Again, there's some things that may be recognizable to people who have been there, but putting it in a new perspective along with new things, including, of course, a lot of the stuff that you've been actually taking out and around the community, right?
Yeah, so some of the pictures for your online viewers that have seen, we brought some of the pieces from the exhibit that are going to be going into it to the El Paso Comic-Con. We'll probably do that again next year. And we also had them on display in the museum very briefly. But the exhibit doesn't start installing in its permanent nature until 2 weeks from now.
Right.
And then the first items will go in, and it'll take us about 5 months to do it because we do it while the museum's open. Mm-hmm. So people will see us installing the exhibit and see the pieces as they go in, and the exhibit transitions from Gene Roddenberry to Sci-Fi, Sci-Fact. It will be completely in December is our deadline, although we're hoping to have it fully in by the fall. But yeah, okay, December is our true deadline, so in time for the Jack Schmidt event.
So stay tuned for that, of course, here. But you also have another exhibit that has come up since the last time we talked with you, that on the telescope, right?
Yeah, and that's actually the part of the fifth floor of the museum is getting a complete redo, and it's not just the telescope. That's a whole section that is on archaeoastronomy, dreamers, astronomers, etc. The final installation of that won't occur until next year, by next summer. But once again, pieces start to go in, like your viewers may be able to see in the pictures here. We've already put in some of the pieces in the walls of that new exhibit. It's kind of, like I said, the museum, if you come in every 6 months or so, you're going to see something new as these exhibits get installed.
Yeah, and I have to at least mention one thing that is was part of your email signature line here. One of the logos that you all are using now. Just explain that for our radio audience here. What we're showing here.
This is part of our astronaut, family that we've got. So that we had created by an El Paso artist, by the way. So in any case, they did the drawings for us, and these are our characters that we use in commercials, marketing, and with the kids for our kids programs. Yeah, we have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah,
especially the monkey and the dog.
Yeah, monkey, dog, referencing many of the different eras of spaceflight, space history. So, of course, you all keep that going on, and we'll keep doing that here. So, again, if people want to become members, find out about the events that are currently on the schedule or upcoming here, best place for them to do that.
nmspacemuseum.org. Just go to our website, or you can call the museum 575-437-2840, and they'll put you in touch with the people who do that.
Yep, they'll be happy to talk with you there because, the way y'all do it and can continue focusing on it here. So we talked a little bit about some of the exhibits that are coming here and that are coming up soon. Any even forward planning, because, this is a moving target, so to speak, with all the stuff that is constantly coming out. Any even future plans for, the stuff coming out of the space race in the area, how to maybe for future, exhibits display that?
Yeah, the answer is yes. So the big thing for us is that we're working on, about 4 years from now, we're hoping to actually install a new building that actually will be a hangar-style building for a lot of these objects. We are getting a full-on lunar module, Mercury capsule that we've got, along with some missiles that we've got that are just too big to put into the museum. And so, that's the next huge thing for us. So the fifth floor is getting a complete redo with like I said, the dreamers, the astronomers, and the archaeoastronomy. There's going to be a whole new thing on the 40s, 50s, and that era of the space program. And there's also going to be preparing humans for space flight. That exhibit opens up in a couple of years. There's a number of galleries, like I said. So the redo of the entire museum is going to take us about 4 years.
And again, a lot more coming with that again. So again, Chris Orwoll, Executive Director of the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Again, nmspacemuseum.org. And a lot of stuff going on there. And you always encourage people to come up whenever they can, except for Tuesdays.
Yep.
Well, Chris, thank you very much again for being here with us in studio to talk about all of this, because knowing that it's been too long since I've been there myself, I will freely and mildly cringing to myself admit, because I spent a lot of time there as a kid. I have some very fond memories of the way they all display things, and you have again continued on that mission today, so I salute you for that, and definitely would encourage people to go out and consider it for themselves. For anyone who hasn't been there before, what would you tell them that they need to prepare for, essentially?
In a place that you wouldn't expect to see the vast history of space exploration, you're going to see it at our museum. And you're going to have a lot of fun with the movies and the stuff that we have on display.
The movies.
Stuff and the stories.
Briefly on that, then, because you do have that IMAX experience.
Yeah, well, not IMAX. Not IMAX, that's like a brand. Yeah, so we have a giant screen dome. There you go. Yep.
You do have that, so people can check out, of course, the schedule for that there. So that's going to about do it for us here on this program. Again, Chris, thank you very much for coming with us in studio here for this pre-recorded episode.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show. Back with you next week here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Have a great weekend, y'all.